Woodpeckers of the United States. When most people think of woodpeckers, they picture a bird hammering loudly on a tree trunk. But in the United States, woodpeckers are far more diverse than that. Some feed on insects deep inside trees. Some drill rows of sap wells and drink tree sap. And one of them spends most of its time walking around on lawns eating ants. In this video, we're going to work our way through the woodpeckers of the United States, from the easiest to find to the ones that test the patience of even the most experienced birders. Along the way, we'll break woodpeckers into three basic groups: traditional woodpeckers, sapsuckers, and flickers. What makes a woodpecker? All woodpeckers belong to the same family, Pileated, and they share a few key adaptations. They have strong, chisel-shaped bills, stiff tail feathers that act like a prop when climbing, and shock-absorbing skulls that protect their brains while drilling. But behavior-wise, woodpeckers fall into three broad categories. Traditional woodpeckers use their bills to excavate wood and extract insects and larvae. They spend most of their time clinging vertically to tree trunks and branches. Sapsuckers are a specialized group that drill neat rows of small holes in trees called sap wells. They feed on the sap itself along with insects attracted to it. And flickers are woodpeckers that feed primarily on the ground, especially ants. They still nest in tree cavities, but their feeding behavior looks very different from most other woodpeckers. With that in mind, let's start with the woodpecker you're most likely to encounter. The most widespread woodpecker in the United States is the northern flicker. Unlike most woodpeckers, northern flickers spend a lot of time on the ground, feeding on ants and beetles. They have longer legs, a slightly curved bill, and a habit of hopping around lawns and open areas. Northern flickers are found across nearly the entire continental U.S., in forests, suburbs, and even city parks. For many people, this is the first woodpecker they ever notice. If you're very lucky and in southern Arizona, you might get a glimpse of another flicker, the stunning gilded flicker. Two of the most familiar traditional woodpeckers are the Downy woodpecker and the hairy woodpecker. They look remarkably similar, but differ mainly in size and bill length. Downy woodpeckers are smaller, with a shorter bill. Hairy woodpeckers are larger and more robust. Both species are widespread across forests, woodlands, and backyards, and both readily visit feeders. They are classic examples of what people think of when they imagine a woodpecker. The red-bellied woodpecker is another common species in the eastern United States. Despite the name, the red on its belly is subtle. The bold red on its head is what people notice. In Texas, look closely at your red-bellied woodpecker. You may be looking at a golden-fronted woodpecker. At the end of the size scale is the pileated woodpecker, the largest woodpecker in the U.S. Pileated woodpeckers excavate massive rectangular holes and play an important role in forest ecosystems by creating nesting cavities used by many other species. While this video is entitled Woodpeckers of the United States, you'll notice we don't talk a lot about Hawaiian woodpeckers. That's because there are no woodpeckers on the Hawaiian Islands. There was a brief attempt to introduce red-bellied woodpeckers to the islands in the early 1960s, but it failed and the red-bellies never established a breeding population and died out. Sapsuckers are a distinct group of woodpeckers with very different feeding habits. The most widespread is the yellow-bellied sapsucker, which breeds across much of the northern and eastern U.S. Sapsuckers drill orderly rows of sap wells in trees and return repeatedly to feed on the sap. These sap wells also attract insects and even other birds, making sapsuckers surprisingly important to forest webs. In the western U.S., this role is filled by closely related species like red-naped, red-breasted sapsuckers, and Williamson's sapsuckers. As you move west and southwest, woodpeckers become more habitat-specific. The Gila woodpecker is closely tied to desert environments and is often found nesting in giant saguaros. The ladder-backed woodpecker is smaller and favors arid scrub and desert woodlands. California's oak woodlands are home to the Nuttall's woodpecker, while higher elevation pine forests host the white-headed woodpecker. These species are all reliable once you're in the right habitat, but much harder to stumble upon by accident. The ivory-billed woodpecker occupies a unique place in American birding, somewhere between history, legend, and hope. Once found throughout the bottomland hardwood forests of the southeastern United States, the ivory-billed woodpecker was one of the largest and most powerful woodpeckers in the world. Its massive ivory-colored bill and bold black and white wings made it unmistakable when it was still around to be seen. By the early 20th century, extensive logging of old-growth forests had pushed the species to the brink. The last widely accepted sightings occurred in the 1940s, and today the ivory-billed woodpecker is generally considered probably extinct. Despite that, occasional reports continue to surface, often from remote swamps and river bottoms. None have been conclusively documented, but the possibility, however slim, continues to captivate birders and conservationists alike. Whether it still survives or not, the ivory-billed woodpecker remains a powerful reminder of what can be lost and why protecting large, intact forests matters. The red-headed woodpecker is one of the most striking woodpeckers in North America. Once common, it has declined significantly due to habitat loss, and today it can be surprisingly hard to find. Out west, the Lewis's woodpecker breaks nearly every woodpecker rule. It often catches insects in flight and behaves more like a flycatcher than a woodpecker. The charismatic acorn woodpecker, with its red cap, black mask, and yellow face, always draws attention as it stashes hundreds of acorns. Look for these stashes at the top of telephone poles in the west. The red-cockaded woodpecker is a small southeastern species that lives almost exclusively in mature longleaf pine forests, where it uniquely excavates nest cavities in living trees rather than dead ones. Because decades of logging and fire suppression drastically reduced that habitat, the bird is now considered endangered and depends on carefully managed pine ecosystems for its survival. At the far end of the difficulty spectrum are the boreal woodpeckers. Boreal meaning the enormous spruce forests of Canada and the northern edges of the United States. The black-backed woodpecker is closely associated with recently burned forests, where it feeds on beetle larvae in dead trees. The American three-toed woodpecker lives in dense northern conifer forests and occurs at very low densities. These species are not impossible to find, but they require planning, timing, and patience. Big year strategy. For birders attempting a big year, woodpeckers fall into 6 categories, from common to regional to boreal. From the woodpeckers that one sees every day to the ones that reward early planning and focused effort, and are often the birds that define success or failure in a big year. Woodpeckers are far more than birds that drill holes in trees. They are lawn foragers, sap specialists, desert survivors, and forest engineers. From backyard feeders to burned boreal forests, woodpeckers occupy nearly every wooded habitat in the United States.